It is Thursday, Chafei Oder. It happens to be the Rebbetzon's birthday. It's Tavshin Ayin Zayin. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer Mamar and Tavshin Yud Gimel. On page Kuf Tes, we're about to begin the Mamar, the second Mamar of Purim Tavshin Yud Gimel. Mamar Al Kein Karu. Before we start, a bit of background. This Mamar is the second of two Mamorim that the Rebbe said on Purim Tavshin Yud Gimel. I believe that up until that point, since the Rebbe's Nesius leadership began on Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph, when he started saying Mamorim, I believe this is the first time that the Rebbe said two Mamorim by Fabrengen, which in itself was something completely new and unprecedented up until that point. But they were very poignant and unusual events that happened around that time and what actually happened at the Fabrengen. So let me read you a couple of things which will give us some background. First of all, this Mamar was edited. The Rebbe said it in Tavshin Yud Gimel 1953, and it was edited and published. The Rebbe edited it and it was published for Purim Tavshin Nun Aleph 1991. So 38 years after the event, after the Rebbe first said it, he edited it and it was published for the Purim of that year for Tavshin Nun Aleph. Every Mamar that was edited has a little opening, like a small preface, right, which says, in honor of this and this day, we hereby bring you this and this Mamar that was said on this and this date, and so on and so forth. A few notes and a date. That also was usually, I think, generally edited by the Rebbe as well. So in the opening of this Mamar, as edited in 1991, it says as follows: the saying of this Mamar, the second Mamar that was said at the Fabrengen of Purim that year of 1953, Tavshin Yud Gimel, was connected apparently with the events that happened in that period up until, I guess, until the downfall of the ruler of that country. The Rebbe would always refer to Russia as Medina Hahi, that country, who was a Tzeder Yisrael who was a Jew hater and did terrible things to the Jewish people, as was understood at the time from the story that the Rebbe told at the Fabrengen as an introduction and close to saying this Mamar. And the story was concerning the Rebbe Rashab's instructions during the period of the revolution after the downfall of the Tsar. This is what it says in the opening to the edited Mamar in 1991. What was the story that Rebbe told? The Rebbe told the following story. This is from Teres Menachem, his Fabrengens, Tavshin Yud Gimel, 1953, volume 2, page 49. The Rebbe said a second Mamar, starting on the verse Al Kein Karu Layomim Hoeileh Purim. Then it says, as an introduction, and near to saying the Mamar, when there was a seriousness and dveikus, a special seriousness seen on the Rebbe's face, the Rebbe began to tell the following story. In the period of the Russian Revolution, after the downfall of the Tsar, the Rebbe Rashab instructed his Chassidim to participate in the elections that were taking place in the country. In line with this, arrived to the place in which the elections were taking place also one of the Chassidim of the Rebbe Rashab, who was completely removed from physical, material events, worldly events. He had no idea what was going on in the country at all. But he arrived there to vote, to do whatever had to be done, because a Chassid has to fulfill the instructions of the Rebbe. It's understood that he did so after going to the mikveh, putting on his gartel, as is befitting the fulfillment of the Rebbe's instructions, that you prepare yourself properly. After he did what he did for the purpose of the elections, after he voted, did what he did, as according to the instructions of his friends that were there, he saw people standing and calling out, "Hurrah! Hurrah!" So he got up and he called out, "Hurrah! Hurrah! Hurrah!" And the hurrah is spelled over here. Ra is with Reish Ayin, which in Russian means hooray. But in Hebrew, if you divide it into two words, it means he is bad.
Right.
Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. Everybody present at the Rebbe's Fabrengen announced with great excitement, "Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah!" And immediately the Rebbe began to say the Mamar Al Kein Karu Layomim Hoeileh Purim. This Mamar that we're about to start learning. This is what it says in Teres Menachem. Here I also want to read you a piece from a diary that was written about the events that took place at the Fabrengen, which gives a bit more flavor. It was approximately 4 o'clock in the morning. The Rebbe leaned on his hands for a number of moments. A special seriousness, similar to that which is seen before the Rebbe says a Maimer, was suddenly seen on the Rebbe's face. The Rebbe suddenly began by saying, when the Tsar was overthrown in Russia, there were elections, and Chassidim received an instruction from the Rebbe Rashab to participate in the elections. This instruction arrived also to one of the Chassidim who was completely removed from worldly matters, worldly affairs, to the extent that he knew nothing of what was going on in the country. But being that it was an instruction of the Rebbe, he went to fulfill it with fear and trepidation. First, he went to Tevel in the mikveh. Then he donned his gartel, put on his gartel, and he went to the place of the elections. When he came, he didn't know exactly what he needs to do, how you do the elections, how you actually elect, whom to elect, etc. But being that he met there additional chassidim, they showed him what to do. And so, the chassid fixed his gartel properly, and he did whatever his friends did. After the elections, they were all shouting, "Hurrah, hurrah," etc. And the chassid stood together with them and was also shouting, "Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah." These last words, "Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah," the Rebbe said with tremendous dveikus, tremendous intent. And he clasped both his hands together, and he turned and he gestured very strongly to his right, forward, and to his left. I think this is, from the way they describe it, this is what happened. He put his hands together like this. After this repeated itself a number of times. And the Rebbe had his eyes closed. He was waving both his hands together up and calling out 3 times, "Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah." After that, the Rebbe repeated it again, as he was looking towards the older Chassidim, repeated the story again, and again he demonstrated exactly what the Chassid did. These were the surprising and hamilim hamaftiyos v'hamadhimos, unbelievable and surprising words that the Rebbe said from a state of great dveikus, and his face it was obvious that he was very emotional. Great intent. The people that were present were completely overwhelmed. Clever Chassidim immediately understood that there's something going on, something esoteric, something concealed, something strange, something different. And then, from with a tremendous is'eirus, all the Chassidim were in a tremendous state of awakening. They all stood up on their feet, and everybody present called out together 3 times at the Fabrengen, "Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah." In the meantime, the Rebbe leaned his head on his 2 hands on the table, for a number of long moments. The Chassidim present were confused, couldn't really understand what was going on. Some Chassidim began to sing Nigunim, others spoke very surprisingly about what was going on in these moments. Suddenly, it was obvious on the Rebbe's face that he wants to say an additional Maimer. In those years, it was possible to detect that the Rebbe was about to say a Maimer because a special seriousness and even like a paleness would appear on the Rebbe's face. After a few long moments, the Rebbe lifted his head, his holy head, and immediately began to say an additional Maimer. Al Kein Karu Layomim Hoeileh Purim, this Maimer that we're about to start learning, and as mentioned before, that besides this time, up until now, it did not happen that the Rebbe should say two Mamorim in the same Fabrengen. This was Purim Tavshin Yud Gimel, 1953, and around that period, the official date of death of Stalin, Yimach Shemai, is March the 5th, 1953. But as is known, for a couple of days, it was not really known what was going on over there. So it was a prolonged situation over a couple of days. But this day Purim was exactly within that period, which obviously led ultimately to a day or two later to his demise. And the actual Maimer, I guess, we will have to begin to learn, please God, tomorrow.